She agrees. She thinks to herself that these people don't know anything about the life she lived or the illness she carries. Hyung-seo asks when would be a good time for the interview and says he'd like her contact information. Sarin walks over and fills out the form. She wonders if her teacher is also involved in managing the club. How unusual. Just then a young man calls her name. She turns around and asks who he is. He says it's a relief that she submitted the form, and he hugs her. She pushes him off and asks why he's doing this. He says he missed her, and now that she's finished submitting, they should go. She's confused and asks what he's talking about. He says if he knew he'd see her today, he would have dressed better. She blinks and asks again who he is. He says he's someone who knows her very well, specifically her past. Her mind goes blank. She wonders if he really knows about her past. She gets a strong feeling that he might. Then she receives a text from her teacher. It says she really shouldn't have told the professor that she was a patient. What if he or someone else finds out she was treated for psychopathy? At the age of 9, Sarin first learns independence in the most terrifying way imaginable. In a valley, far from anyone's sight, she ends her father's life. At 16, she falls in love for the first time, and that ends in death too. She uses her art teacher as a model, permanently. She sees herself as a monster, the kind who doesn't hesitate. But somehow, as if heaven itself felt pity, she meets a doctor who changes everything. Through treatment, she's reborn. She learns how to be human again. She becomes someone who can live a normal life. She tries to move forward. She wants to be good. Just when she's finally settling into a quiet life, someone walks in and threatens the fragile balance she's built. She tells the man that this is their first meeting, yet he claims to know everything about her past. Isn't that strange? He replies that he understands why she feels that way and introduces himself as Sarang. He says he's 23, just returned to school this semester, and he's part of Yedding March, the very club she just applied to. He quickly adds that he didn't get into art school, but luckily, Professor Song Gi-hoon gave him an opportunity. Sarin cuts in and tells him she's not really interested in his school history. What she wants to know is how he knows her. He seems confused that she doesn't remember. He asks if she didn't notice him at Professor Song Gi-hoon's solo exhibition. She looks puzzled. He says it's strange because his face isn't one people easily forget. He called her name that day. She thinks back and remembers. Yes, someone did call her. That's why his voice sounded so familiar. He continues speaking with a calm smile, saying the professor couldn't stop praising her that day. Even though the semester had just begun, the professor was already impressed. That was rare. The professor doesn't hand out compliments easily. After Sarin left that day, Sarang says he began counting the days until he could see her again. He says there are so many things he wants to talk to her about. He admits he feels impatient, but he promises to take it slow. He knows he probably seems overwhelming, but he says the fact that they've now met again like this must mean it's fate. Sarin stands there wondering what kind of fate he's talking about. What does he mean by destiny? He suddenly checks the time and says he has class soon, but they'll definitely meet again. No, he corrects himself. He'll see her again? Then he walks away. Sarin watches him go and tells herself something is off. What was that talk about her past? She needs to figure this out. She heads to the basketball court. She repeats to herself that this isn't stalking, it's research. She just wants to understand the situation, nothing more. It's better to know now than regret it later. As she walks, she hears a group of girls excitedly talking nearby. They're watching someone on the court, Sarang. One girl says he's really handsome. Another wonders if he has a girlfriend. One of them says he hasn't dated since he came back to school. Another one claims that he does have a girlfriend. The first one asks if it's an older woman. One says she looks rich, definitely in her 30s or maybe even her 40s. The first girl can't understand it. Why would someone like him date someone like that? One of them whispers that it might be because of money. She seemed to like him a lot. Another girl says she didn't see that coming. No wonder there are strange rumors about him. Some professors in the painting department are even afraid of him. One girl asks why the painting department would be scared when he's not even part of the art faculty. Sarin listens quietly and thinks to herself that she's getting a clearer picture. Sarang is in his second year at the university, majoring in hotel management. Right after enrolling, he took a break to join the army and only returned this semester. Since then, everyone's been talking about him. He became so popular that even people outside his department know his name. Nearby, 3 guys are staring at a poster of him. One of them jokes that if you keep the poster, money will come your way. Another one tells him to stop believing random things. The first one shrugs and says, Sarang still looks good. Sarin notes that Sarang isn't just handsome. He's also rich and young. Someone walks up to him and greets him by name. He smiles and greets them back, calling them Juan and Taeyeon. They're surprised he remembers. He says he saw a painting in the hallway that looked like something she would do. He compliments the colors and tells her it was beautiful. She thanks him and says goodbye. He says, see you next time. Sarin watches closely. Though Sarang is in the business department, he spends a lot of time around art students. One guy nearby asks if it's weird to call Sarang senior since he's not in their major. Another says it doesn't matter. He might buy their work someday. That's because Sarang is also an art collector. When he was still a teenager and art by Professor Song Gi-hoon was cheaper, he bought one of the pieces. 3 years later, he resold it for a huge profit. Sarin continues watching him from a distance. She thinks about how he doesn't use social media, which made it hard to find out anything about him online. But now she's beginning to gather small pieces. His comment about knowing her past still bothers her. She thinks maybe he's just interested in her art. Maybe the professor mentioned that she grew up in an orphanage. But if he really knew everything about her, the things she hides deep inside, then unless he's completely clueless, he wouldn't speak so casually. In her eyes, he seems fake, full of performance and pretense. She doesn't like people like that. Just then, Sarang appears again and calls her name. She jumps in surprise. He apologizes and says he's been looking for her. She asks why. He tells her they've been paired together. She looks confused and asks what he means. In her mind, she thinks, what is he talking about? Sarin sits quietly in the cafeteria when a young woman walks up to her and says she has tickets to an exhibition, asking if they should go together. Sarin looks surprised and asks if she really means it. The woman smiles and says, of course, it's an honor to be friends with a genius artist. Sarin hears the word friends and wonders what she's talking about. The woman introduces herself as Cha Jae-jin and says they should get along since they're the only 2 students in the painting department this year. Sarin finds that interesting but doesn't say much. As they talk, Sarin watches Sarang from a distance and thinks to herself that he's even acting flashy in the art club now. He steps forward to speak and gathers everyone's attention. He says their club exists to calm the anxious hearts of art students and help each other grow. It's the only art therapy club in Saekuk University. This semester, the club will focus on self-reflection, and they plan to hold an exhibition over the summer to showcase what they've discovered. He adds that the exhibition space will be provided by none other than Sarang. Everyone claps. After the applause, the man in charge asks if the new members have greeted their senior partners and introduced themselves. He tells Sarang to please sit beside his partner and begin opening up. Try to bring out each other's true selves. Sarang looks at Sarin and tells her that it must be fate that they ended up as partners here too. She gets up to leave, but he grabs her wrist gently and asks if she didn't miss him. It's been a while. She stares and asks why she would. He says he had a feeling she's been avoiding him. Her reaction today makes that clear. Even so, since they're partners, they still have activities to do together. Before she leaves, she should at least give him her number. Sarin thinks to herself whether he's just bold or truly shameless. Then a message pops up on her phone. It's from Professor Song Gi-hoon. He asks if she's near campus and if she can stop by his office. She sighs in frustration. She thinks about it. Every person she's ever harmed so far has been someone who made her uncomfortable. And with that, she walks out. The next day, Sarin visits Professor Song Gi-hoon's office. He tells her that he wants her to study abroad. She looks surprised and asks what he means. He says yes, he's planning to leave the school soon, but it's a secret. Everything they discuss must stay just between them. He plans to go to the UK, and he wants to take her with him. Sarin listens silently. He says he knows it's sudden, but he truly likes her work. He believes in her potential. That's why he's making the offer. He says she doesn't have to worry about the arrangements. He'll find a new university for her and secure a place for her to stay through a professor he knows overseas. She thanks him and says she appreciates the opportunity, but she wants to think about it before giving her answer. He tells her that's fine, but she'll need to decide quickly because there isn't much time. She says okay and leaves his office. As she walks away, Sarin wonders if she can really trust him. He said it's because he likes her work, and it's true that her dream has always been to be guided by him. So why does something about this make her uneasy? She tells herself to stay indifferent and detached. That's how normal people live. Don't make anything a big deal. That's what she always tells herself. She doesn't want to hurt anyone. She just wants to live quietly. But still, the uneasiness won't go away. Later, she's sitting in a noisy restaurant. She thinks to herself that she wishes she were home. She feels tired from all the noise and attention. Then Jaejin appears and walks over to her. She asks if she's Kang Sarin, the top student who got in through the practical exam. She says she saw her work in the studio, and even her sketches are amazing. She asks which art studio she studied at. Sarin replies that she didn't attend any art academy. She wonders why everyone keeps asking where she trained. Jaejin is stunned and says it's incredible that Sarin got accepted as the top student through self-study. She's truly impressed. Then she asks if Sarin knows Peter Doig. Sarin replies that, yes, he's a British artist and she really admires his work. Jaejin excitedly tells her that Peter Doig will be holding a solo exhibition in Seoul very soon. The next morning, Sarin takes her medication. She hears a knock at the door and walks over to check. When she opens it, she sees Lee Haejin standing there. He asks how she's been and she immediately hugs him. They sit down together and she asks if he really came all the way here. He says yes, and that he can still do delivery work while staying in Seoul. Then he mentions he heard something strange, that cats have been dying. Sarin responds with a quiet, "Oh, that," and he gently asks if she thinks it's because of her. She says she's not sure yet. She hasn't figured it out. He asks if the nightmares started again. She answers that she doesn't even know. She thinks maybe. In her mind, she remembers seeing her slippers turned around in the morning. She tells him that when she wakes up, there are small signs that she moved during the night. It's not obvious, but she knows. Then she tells him not to make that face. He's looking at her like it really is her fault, and it makes her uncomfortable. She adds that she only texted him that day because she was feeling a little anxious. She probably shouldn't have said anything. It was just a guess. She's okay now. Haejin asks if she's going to tell her teacher about it. Sarin says not yet. She's worried the teacher will recommend another treatment, and she doesn't want that. He nods and says he understands, but he's still concerned. He remembers what happened before. What if she's sleepwalking again? He says people can act out hidden instincts in their sleep. Sarin listens and agrees. He has a point. She quietly asks if it's really her. Is she the one harming cats at night without even knowing? Haejin tells her that he'll stay with her. She looks at him and asks what he means. He says he came to see if she moves around in her sleep. That's why he came. That night, he sleeps in the living room. Sarin is alone in the bedroom. She opens her eyes in the middle of the night and walks out. She stands over him while he sleeps and stares at him. She wonders how he plans to watch her when he's sound asleep, too. Lee Haejin has always been that kind of person. Back when she was abandoned by her mother and bullied at the orphanage, he was the only one who ever reached out to her. He's not perfect, he's awkward and sometimes clueless, but she appreciates that about him. If the world were as gentle and indifferent as he is, maybe she wouldn't always feel like she's on the edge of losing her mind. The next morning, he stretches and apologizes for sleeping so deeply. He asks how the night went. Did she have any nightmares? She tells him it was fine. No nightmares. She didn't sleep very long, but it was the first time in a while that she slept that well. He's relieved and says that's good. He says he feels bad for falling asleep right after promising to watch over her. He says tomorrow night he'll keep his eyes wide open. She smiles and tells him it's really okay. She feels fine. He doesn't need to stay up like that. He says he still feels bad. She changes the subject and asks him what he would think if she studied abroad. He looks surprised and asks why she's suddenly bringing that up. She explains that she hasn't decided yet, but she's considering it. She feels like if she goes somewhere unfamiliar, she'll be too busy adjusting to dwell on everything else. She adds that Professor Song Gi-hoon offered to cover all the costs. She feels like it would be rude to turn that down. Haejin asks if that's the same artist she admires. She nods and says yes, it's a great opportunity. If she just does her best, everything should work out. She thinks to herself that maybe it's because Haejin stayed with her. Or maybe it's because she finally got a good night's sleep. But for the first time in a long while, she feels something close to hope. Haejin tells her again that it sounds like a great idea. She smiles, but inside she feels a weight pulling her down. Just when she starts to feel a little lighter, her past shows up again, like it's been waiting for the right moment to remind her who she is. The next morning, she wakes up to a message from Professor Song Gi-hoon. He asks if she's made her decision yet, and says if she chooses to go, he'll even arrange a new home for her himself. Sarin stares at the screen and wonders, where did he even come from? She gets up quietly and takes her medication. There are days like this when everything seems to be going Sarin's way. The thoughts that weighed her down yesterday now melt away in the sunlight, She checks her pocket and pulls out a card. She reminds herself that it's for the interview connected to Professor Song Gi-hoon. That's a good thing. During the interview, she'll remember how much she admired him. Just like Lee Haejin said, she truly respects the professor's work. She realizes she's been too sensitive lately. It's her first time living in Seoul, and she's been overwhelmed by the new environment. But now, when she thinks about it clearly, she doesn't need to feel so nervous around Ryu Sarang or the professor. She has received proper treatment. She's not the same person she used to be. She tells herself it's time to stop living in the past. A young woman enters and calls out her name. She introduces herself as Choi Hyung-sho and says it's really nice to meet her. They begin to talk. Hyung-sho says, Sarin must really know the professor's work. She sounds like a true fan. Sarin smiles and says she started making art because of her admiration for him. Hyung-sho asks if that's true, and Sarin explains that yes, she once knew someone who had one of the professor's paintings hanging in their office. She didn't know what to call it at the time, maybe an aura. But the feeling of seeing that painting stayed with her. That's when she decided she wanted to become an artist like him. Hyung-seo listens and then asks if that someone Sarin mentioned is Dr. Gwak Ju-gyung, the woman who was at the professor's solo exhibition. Sarin replies yes and asks if she knows her. Hyung-seo says that Dr. Gwak is well known among artists. She's respected for her success in treating anxiety and sleep disorders. Sarin nods and says that's true. She treated her too, and even did it for free. As soon as Sarin says that, she realizes she may have said too much. Maybe it's the bright weather or the sense of ease, but she feels more open than usual. She doesn't realize yet that her own excitement might come back to hurt her. Hyung-seo's tone changes. She asks if Sarin means treatment for psychopathy. She repeats it again. Has she been treated as a psychopath? She brings up a case from 6 years ago. A fire at the Pounding Motel. 2 people died. One was Yoon Hee-gun, an art teacher from Pungdong Middle School. The other was actress Hong Yeonran. Yoon Hee-gun died after falling from the building while he was on fire. Hong Yeonran died inside from smoke. And the only survivor was a middle school girl, Kang Sarin, the main suspect. Sarin freezes. She tells her she doesn't know what she's talking about. If the interview is finished, she'll be going. But Hyung-seo continues. She says the case was closed due to lack of evidence and a diagnosis of mental disorder. A legal sentence was given, and the girl disappeared. 5 years later, Kang Sarin returned as a quiet art student. But Hyung-seo insists that the fire was not an accident. It wasn't caused by a short circuit. Something happened in that room. Sarin started the fire, didn't she? She killed Yoon Hee-gun. Sarin responds calmly. She says that's right. She must have accidentally killed the woman too, didn't she? What does Hyung-seo want her to say? She must be enjoying this. But the truth is, Sarin doesn't remember anything. She lost her memory during that accident. Her memories from before she turned 18 are gone. So even if Hungseo digs, Sarin won't be able to help her. She knows as little about her past as anyone else. Hungseo stares at her. Sarin adds that the treatment she mentioned earlier was for a sleep disorder. That's all it was. She had nightmares and used to move around in her sleep. That's what the doctor treated. Nothing more. Is that enough for the interview? Then she'll be going now. Hungseo leans forward slightly. She tells Sarin she might want to act clueless, but not everyone has forgotten about that night. Sooner or later, someone will come looking. Or maybe they already have. Sarin walks outside and sees Sarang standing at the door. Later that day, she's teaching a student how to paint properly. The student thanks her, and Sarin thinks to herself that she just wants to live like a regular art student. She wants to work on weekends to earn money for materials and living expenses, spend time thinking about her next assignment, and just focus on being a normal art student. That's all she wants, but something always keeps disrupting her. Just then, a young woman calls out to her. The woman reminds her that they have a nude croquis session today and tells her to make sure she participates and creates an exemplary piece. Sarin responds that she will. The woman adds that Mr. Kim will keep track of time and set the mood so everyone takes it seriously. Sarin agrees. The teacher tells the class to stop chatting and take their seats. She says it's not an opportunity that comes easily, so they should focus for the next hour and make it count, as there will be a review afterward. As the session starts, Sarin's mind is cluttered with what happened earlier that morning. She tries to calm herself, thinking that nothing will change. Ryu Sarang might be wrong, and the PD doesn't really know her. In the end, she didn't get anything useful from the encounter. She tells herself she'll investigate PD Choi Hyungseo after work, take it slow, and deal with things calmly. Everything will be okay. The teacher announces they have 15 minutes left. Sarin lifts her head and sees Sarang standing nearby. She wonders what he's doing there. Did he find out she works here? How and why is he here? A teacher walks up to her and asks why she's not drawing, reminding her that time is precious during croquis. Sarin apologizes and goes back to her work. Minutes later, the teacher announces there are just 10 minutes left. Time passes quickly, and before long, it's over. Sarin stands up, walks out, and gets some water. She wonders what is going on. Why is Sarang there? She drags him to a private corner. She demands to know who he is and how he found out she works there. He shouldn't just call it a coincidence. He needs to explain himself properly. He tells her it's not a coincidence. He admits that he did some research on her and deliberately applied to be a model during her session. Sarin asks why. He says he fell in love with her at first sight. Sarin is shocked and tells him he can't be serious. She says this isn't the time for jokes and demands that he stop messing around and explain himself. He tells her he must seem strange if he's saying he fell for her at first sight. Realizing how serious she is, he drops the jokes. He asks if she's done investigating him. Sarin thinks to herself that he knew. He continues, saying this meeting isn't what he expected. He's frustrated because he doesn't know what to think. Then he says, okay, he'll just ask her directly. Was she the one who set the fire at the Pungdong Motel? She must know this since she's been investigating him. He adds that he's the son of the actress Hong Yunran, who died in that fire. Sarin looks at Sarang and asks if he's really the son of Hong Yunran. She says she didn't know, but now she wants to understand. What is he trying to do by approaching her like this? Coming in pairs, both him and PD Choi Hyungseo. She asks if they know each other. It seems like the two of them have been working together to get close to her. She says it's interesting that he revealed his true colors so quickly. Since they've dropped the act, she'll ask him directly, why did he behave like that? Why act so friendly? It's frustrating. Sarang looks confused and asks what she means. Sarin cuts him off. She says fine, since they've come to this point, she'll apologize first. She's sorry. But that doesn't mean she's going to answer his questions. She sees no reason to. She tells him that about the fire. She has nothing to say because she doesn't remember anything. Sarang asks her what she means. She explains that she forgot everything. No, she lost her memories. He grabs her arm and tells her to speak clearly. She tells him plainly that she doesn't remember anything before she was 18. The accident erased it all. He stares at her and asks again, not believing it. She pushes his hand away and repeats it. Yes, she lost all her memories. Without any evidence or memory, how is she supposed to say yes or no about what happened? He grabs her by the shirt and asks how she can lie like that. How could she not remember? She says she's not lying, even if he doesn't believe her. She tells him that he might want to deny the truth, but this is how it is. She only learned the details later from others. He tells her that if she's going to lie, she should at least make it believable. She asks him if this is revenge. Is that what this is about? Does he want to punish her because of what happened to his mother? She looks him straight in the eye and asks what he was planning to do by coming to see her. If she had said yes, would he have tried to kill her? Was he planning to commit murder to get justice? He lets go of her. She tells him that whatever he was trying to do, it's done now. He should stop wasting his time. They should live their lives separately. She turns and walks away. That night, Sarin wakes up from a nightmare. She gets up and searches for information about Hong Yanran. She finds her name, her photo, and sees that her husband is Ryu Songchan, CEO of Ryuan Hotel. That confirms it. Ryu Sarang is definitely her son. She stares at the screen in disbelief. She asks herself why she didn't think about this before. Of course, if she took someone's life, there could be someone out there trying to take hers too. It's only natural. He knew. He knew her past and even mentioned it right in front of her. And she didn't notice. She shakes her head. She actually believed she could live a normal life after her treatment. She thought it was possible. She thought the worst was behind her. How foolish. She should have looked into his family background before letting him get close. How could she miss something this important? It's so careless, so ridiculous, that it makes her want to laugh. Bitterly. She realizes he came for revenge. Pretending to fall for her at first sight. Pretending to care. He tricked her. He wanted her to lower her guard. Was he planning to get close, then attack when she was vulnerable? She made it out this time. But thinking about the way he smiled at her, the woman who may have killed his mother, she knows something is wrong. No normal person could do that. He's not thinking clearly. There's no way he'll walk away from this so easily. Now she stands in the rain. Cold, soaked, quiet. She looks up at the sky and thinks to herself that she can't just sit back and wait for what's coming. She has to act. She has to protect herself. She has no choice. Sarin tries to think logically. If she really wants to protect herself, the most practical decision is to disappear. Just then, she gets a text from Professor Song. She looks at it and tells herself this is it. She's leaving. Just as the professor suggested, she'll start over. New place, new identity. After everything that's happened, there's no reason to keep hesitating. She walks toward the faculty building and sees Professor Song at the entrance, pushing a young man out of his house. The professor tells the man to stop getting involved in his business, saying he'll handle it himself. The man doesn't back down. He says he's working for a company now and wants to know what the professor means by that. He says alcoholism is a real illness. If things keep going like this, something serious could happen. That's why he's worried. Sarin's eyes widen. Alcoholism? The man brings up the professor's solo exhibition, saying it was nearly a disaster. He says it's not that hard. They just need to go to the hospital and get a diagnosis. The professor replies that it's ridiculous to come all the way to school just for this. Whether it's an addiction or just work is his own problem, and he wants to be left alone. The man tries again, but the professor cuts him off sharply and says he doesn't need help from any company. He tells him to get out and slams the door in his face. The man stands there for a moment and mutters that the professor has no idea how much trouble he's caused. Sarin watches silently. She thinks the man must be part of some management company, and if he's talking about hospital visits, then the professor's drinking must be really serious. This is worse than she thought. Suddenly the man turns around and notices her. He walks up and greets her warmly. He calls her the next generation's artist, Kang Sarin. He says it's an honor to meet her again. Sarin is confused. Didn't he just leave? She asks how he's still here. He says there's no need for her to be nervous. He saw her during Professor Song's exhibition. He also heard she's a freshman with great talent. Then he asks what she's doing at the school so late, especially in the faculty building. Sarin wonders if he's bringing that up because he saw the argument about the professor's drinking. Does he think she'll spread rumors? She calmly replies that she just came by because she left something in a classroom upstairs. She thanks him for reminding her that she's still just a student and says she's heading out now. He watches her go and tells her not to be in such a rush. He says even though he looks rough, it's a bit disappointing to see her act so distant. He offers her something. He says he wants to make a good impression on someone like her, someone who's going to be famous someday. Sarin accepts it with a forced thank you and says goodbye. As soon as she's out of sight, she throws away whatever he gave her. She tells herself that even the people connected to the professor feel like real gangsters. The more she learns, the worse it gets. What is she supposed to do now? The professor feels like a ticking time bomb. Should she tell her teacher? No, it's not that simple. Even if she wanted to, there's nothing she can do that feels realistic. And she doesn't want to disappoint the teacher. Even quitting the club won't help. Everyone in their department knows who Ryu Sarang is. If he reveals her past, her school life is over. There's no escape, nowhere to run. It's a dead end. Then a thought crosses her mind. Should she kill him? If Sarang disappears, everything would go quiet. She wouldn't have to worry anymore. She's done it before. One more wouldn't make a difference. If she does it carefully, with no one watching, then maybe it'll be okay. But then she pauses. What about the treatment she's received all these years? All the effort she's made to change? Suddenly she feels something. Someone's watching her. She turns around slowly and whispers to herself. What was that? Someone's here, watching her on a quiet weekend night. Sarin tells herself to get to a brighter place first. As she takes a step, she suddenly realizes the rain isn't falling on her anymore. She turns around and sees Ryu Sarang standing behind her, holding an umbrella over her head. He looks at her seriously and says this is his final question. It matters to him more than anything, and he hopes she'll answer honestly. He asks if she knows someone named Hong Yunran. Sarin pauses. She replies that of course she knows who that is. Hong Yunran was one of the greatest actresses in the country. Everyone knew her. She doesn't know the full details, but she remembers how wild the media went back then. People kept asking why a married woman was at a motel in the countryside. Was she having an affair? Sarang tells her to stop changing the subject. He doesn't want gossip. He wants to know what she saw. Sarin answers quietly. She says she doesn't remember. Then she suddenly understands what he's really asking. He wants to know if his mother was really having an affair. That's why he keeps coming back. He's searching for answers. Sarang stays quiet. He says he doesn't expect much from her. He just wants one truth. Did she set the motel on fire? Sarin looks at him and says fine. She'll tell him everything. But in return, she doesn't want to hear what he's hiding or why he keeps following her. She doesn't want to die. She tells him she was once diagnosed as a psychopath and received electrotherapy. Because of that treatment, she lost all her memories from before that time. Sarang is shocked. He asks what she means. She asks him why he's acting surprised. Didn't he expect something like this? She says she really can't say if she did it or not because she doesn't remember. It may be hard to believe, but she's telling the truth. She says she doesn't remember much, but she does know being treated like a criminal when she didn't even know what she did was painful. She tried so hard to get better. All she wanted was to live a normal life. She knows it sounds unbelievable, but she really doesn't remember anything from back then. In her mind, she admits that sometimes she dreams scattered, strange memories, but she keeps that part to herself. She tells him that whatever happened in the past, it doesn't matter anymore. Back then, she wasn't fully reborn, but she's different now, so he should stop chasing the past. Nothing is going to change. Sarang hears this and repeats her words. Reborn? Who said she could just be reborn? Who said she could forget everything like that? He suddenly throws the umbrella aside, drops to his knees, and starts crying. He asks her if she knows how he's been living because of what happened, how everything in his life was twisted by it. What is he supposed to do now? Sarin stares at him. It's the first time she's ever seen the face of someone truly grieving. It hits her all at once. Not only did the fire ruin her own life, but it buried his too. His pain, so raw, carves deep into her like a sharp ache in every bone in her body. She asks herself if she will ever be able to live a normal life. Can she really leave the past behind, or will it always come back like this? As the rain mixes with his tears and soaks through her clothes, all she can think about is the storm inside her, the guilt, the fear, the confusion. She wishes she could go back to the time before treatment, to the moment before she ever began to hope for change. She wishes she could reach into her chest and rip out the part of her that still feels too much, because feeling this much hurts more than anything. Sarin is in class, but she feels sick. Her stomach is unsettled, her head feels heavy, and her thoughts are scattered. She quietly starts packing her bag, trying not to draw attention. Just then, Jaejin walks up to her and asks if she's okay. She says Sarin seems really tired these days. She smiles gently and asks if Sarin wants to have lunch with her later. Jaejin reaches out and lightly touches Sarin's arm, but Sarin reacts without thinking. She hits her hand away. Jaejin is startled. Sarin quickly apologizes, her tone polite but distant. She tells Jaejin she has a meeting and probably won't be able to join for lunch. She thanks her for asking, says she'll be off now, and quickly runs out of the classroom. Sarin hurries into the bathroom and leans against the wall, breathing hard. Her hands are shaking slightly. She thinks about everything that happened. It's already been 3 days since Ryu Sarang disappeared. After their last conversation, he hasn't shown up again. But a new image has started to appear in her dreams, the final moment of his mother's life. That image clings to her, vivid and cold. Then a text message comes in. She stares at the screen. This can't be a coincidence. This is aimed at her. Someone is reenacting the incident from 6 years ago. Someone is trying to pull her into the past. She tries to call the number back, but the phone is already switched off. Jaejin rushes over, saying she just came back from lunch and saw what happened. She looks down and asks if that's Sarin's notebook burning. Sarin quickly tells her to keep quiet. She keeps trying to reach the number, but it won't connect. She asks herself if this is Ryu Sarang's way of starting something. Is he trying to pick a fight with her now? Then she spots someone in the crowd. She thinks it's him. She pushes forward and tries to follow, but Jaejin grabs her arm and calls her back. Jaejin pulls out her phone and shows her something. She says some students sent this photo just now, and she thinks Sarin should see it. Sarin leans in and sees her own painting, completely ripped apart, her work destroyed. Around them, other students start whispering. Then another message arrives on Sarin's phone. The words are short and cold. Just like you ruined someone else's life, your life will be ruined too. Sarin stands frozen, her chest tightens. She asks herself again, is he really picking a fight with me? That night, Sarin stands outside her house. The air is cold, but her thoughts are burning. A car pulls up, and Sarang steps out. She looks at him and says he's late. She expected him to come sooner. He probably wanted to see her lose control. She asks how he found her address. Is this part of the investigation he once mentioned? Sarang tells her to come with him. She asks why she would do that. Who knows what he's planning? He replies that after thinking about what she said, her actions are starting to make more sense. And if she's really confident in her story, why not come along? If she doesn't remember anything, what's she so afraid of? She stares at him and tells him to take something out and attack her. Isn't that why he came? To kill her? But he doesn't have the guts, does he? Maybe he's scared of causing trouble for his father's hotel, so he's harassing her instead. He tells her not to be in such a hurry. Whether he chooses to act or not is up to him. She says now she's seeing his true nature. Why didn't he act like this earlier? It's better than when he was pretending. He replies that he never faked anything. From the beginning, he came to help her remember what she forgot. He didn't wait all this time just to hear her say she doesn't remember. Even if she dies, he says he'll make sure those memories come back clearly. After everything he's gone through just to survive, he won't accept excuses like psychotherapy or amnesia. She tells him that maybe they're the same, both messed up. He keeps acting like only her life was wrong, but she's lived through a lot too. She warns him not to push her because even she has limits. He tells her once again to get in the car. She refuses. He grabs her hand. She pulls away and asks if he really thinks she'll just obey him like that. Without warning, he lifts her onto his shoulder. She yells at him to put her down. He says they're going to Pungdong. That's where everything started. She remembers the notebook, the texts, and the fire. She fights back, pushes him down hard, and looks him in the eye. She asks if it felt good when he destroyed her painting, when he burned her notebook. Did he really think that would make her panic? She pulls out a knife. Her hand shakes, but her voice doesn't. She tells him she's about to snap. Does he even know what kind of person she is? If he wants to fight with knives, fine. Let's see who wins. But if he doesn't have the courage to go that far, then he should stop provoking her and disappear. She turns and storms back into her house. Later, she sits alone in the art studio. Her thoughts are spinning. She tells herself that Sarang is not okay. If he came at her with a knife, she could stab him and call it self-defense. It would be over. But this constant mental game is worse. It's making her angrier by the day. Earlier, she didn't even have enough money to buy a new canvas. She hesitated, but Jaejin noticed and quietly gave her a roll of canvas from the studio. She didn't want anyone to know she was struggling, but Jaejin helped anyway. She wonders why Sarang can't just leave her alone. She hasn't slept well in days. Her body is tired, and her mind is worn out. Her phone buzzes again. It's the same number. Even after she warned him yesterday, he's still not giving up. Then another message comes in, this time from Professor Song. He says she should come see him. Professor Song looks at Sarin and says it's already been a week. She's taking too long to decide. He reminds her that he doesn't make this kind of offer to just any student. He made it only for her. Isn't it time she gives him an answer? Sarin apologizes. She tells him she wants to stay and study at Saekuk University. He blinks and asks what she just said. She explains that she worked so hard to get into the school, and it feels like she hasn't even had the chance to study properly yet. It's disappointing. Getting a sudden opportunity to study abroad without any effort doesn't feel right to her. In many ways, it doesn't sit well. The professor stares at her in disbelief. He says he thought she was smarter than this. But she's just as foolish as the others. She asks what he means. He tells her not to pretend she doesn't understand how expensive art school is. She grew up in an orphanage. She doesn't have any family support. Even if she has a scholarship covering tuition, she'll still have to work part-time jobs to afford her living costs and art supplies. She has to maintain perfect grades to keep her scholarship, and as just a freshman, she still sees the world through rose-colored glasses. She's completely out of touch with reality. He reminds her that she even had to borrow the deposit for her apartment from Dr. Guak. He asks if she really thinks this is the worst of it. Does she believe what she sees now is all there is? Talent alone means nothing. There are countless students just as skilled as her. Without money and strong connections, she'll end up like so many others, starving artists who fade away before anyone remembers their names. He tells her that he offered to fix her past and raise her properly, but instead, she's been ungrateful, turning her back on it. People envy those who succeed without effort, those who take opportunities and move ahead. But here she is, throwing herself into failure just to protect some meaningless pride. She doesn't even recognize whose kindness to accept. He says he wasted his time on her. He should have left a long time ago. He asks her what she's still doing there, standing around. She should go live her miserable, pathetic life. Just as Sarin turns to leave, her phone buzzes. A message comes from the same unknown number. At the art studio, one of the students asks if Jaejin is staying overnight. Jaejin says of course, she has so much work left to do. The other girl says she's exhausted. Sarin walks in quietly and heads straight to an empty canvas. Other students glance at her but say nothing. She picks up a thin brush and dips it into red paint. Without a word, she begins to paint over the canvas. Bold strokes, harsh movement. In her mind, she thinks she wants to erase everything, wipe it all out. She wants to silence them all. Why are they doing this to her? What did she do to deserve this? She finishes and stands still, staring at the red canvas. Other students look at her in shock and start whispering among themselves. Jaejin walks over and gently asks if she's okay. Sarin looks at her coldly, then softens. She apologizes and asks if Jaejin can pass her the bag beside her. Jae-jin hands it to her. Sarin pulls out her medication, takes one, and swallows it. She asks if Jae-jin is working overnight too. Jae-jin nods and asks the same. Sarin says yes, she has so much to do. She spent the entire day working on her canvas. Jae-jin then asks if she submitted the drawing assignment. Sarin replies that she's planning to submit it later. There's still a lot she hasn't finished. That night, Sarin sleeps in the studio. A nightmare hits her hard, twisting in her mind. She wakes up suddenly to Jae-jin shaking her. Jae-jin's face is pale, her voice shaky. She tells Sarin that they need to go right now. Sarin asks what happened. Jae-jin looks at her and says she thinks Professor Song is dead. The next day, everyone is preparing for Professor Song Gi-hoon's funeral. The atmosphere around campus is heavy. A student holds up a phone and asks if the article is really about the professor. Another girl leans in to see it and looks shocked. She says they found a suicide note. She turns to her friend and asks if he's heard about it. He nods and says apparently there had been a conflict between the professor and the university president. She asks why. He reminds her about the discussions last year on downsizing the art department. It seems like the professor stood up to the president and the situation got worse from there. He says things became so bad that the university started interviewing replacements for the professor's classes. She asks if that means he almost got fired. She says she really liked his lessons. He nods and says the rest of them didn't know, but behind the scenes, things were tense. She says he seemed like a good person. They had no idea he was going through all that. He agrees, saying the professor was the only one who truly cared about them. She asks if the fight with the president is what drove him to do this. The boy shrugs and says no one knows for sure, but he thinks the professor's depression was serious. He heard he was on medication. He also notices that the day before his death was the professor's birthday. Sarin stands silently and remembers her last conversation with him. The words still echo in her head. Elsewhere in the hallway, Sarang leans against the wall thinking. He recalls reading the suicide note. It mentioned depression. A student even said they saw the professor running just before it happened, like he was delivering a final message. Everything looks like a suicide, except one thing. Kang Sarin. He remembers her saying she sleepwalks, that in her dreams she kills people. And now someone really died. He asks himself if it's possible. Can someone commit murder while asleep? The professor had jumped from a tall building. His body was found on fire. No clear signs of foul play. The case was already ruled a suicide. It all feels too familiar, just like 6 years ago in Pyeongdong. A mysterious note, a sudden death, and no clear evidence. The case was quietly closed. Sarang tells himself this can't all be coincidence. Sarin walks past the crowd. A student steps forward and stops her. He asks if she knows the truth too, that it wasn't suicide. He says the professor had plans to study abroad. They were supposed to go together. Sarin asks if that's true. He nods firmly, saying he's sure. Sarang watches from nearby, listening without being noticed. The student tells her that the professor offered her the same chance too. He says the professor had already made plans. There's no way he'd suddenly choose to die.
If you're excited to see what happens next, leave a comment asking for part 3. Make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. See you in the next one. Ciao.